Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our presentation today, PPM for the Enterprise, Overcoming Deployment Challenges. Before we get started, we have a few quick logistics to cover. Once again, we are expecting a large audience, so we will not be opening the line for questions. However, our webinar facilitator, Morgan, will be on the other line monitoring the presentation, and she'll be able to answer any of your questions via the chat module as we move throughout the presentation. You can also feel free to either reply to the webinar emails you've been receiving from GoToWebinar, or you can send an email to me directly and I'll be happy to answer your questions. My email is at the bottom of the slide here. That being said, all the lines will be muted throughout the presentation. If for some reason you get distracted or pulled away, no worries there. We'll be distributing the recording following the presentation today as well. And then, of course, for those of you that need PDU information, that will be listed on the last slide of the presentation as well. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. For today's agenda, we'll be covering the following topics. First and foremost, common PPM deployment challenges. EPMI has been involved in hundreds of deployments over the years. We definitely see a trend with the types of challenges that organizations face. So we're going to cover each one of those challenges and discuss various ways you can overcome them. We're also going to talk about the importance of understanding PPM maturity. Again, the various tips on how you can overcome user challenges. And then, PPM branding, this one might seem a little out of scope for the topics at hand, but really it's a critical piece of the puzzle, so we're going to touch on that briefly as well. And then we'll cover some of the various tools that you can leverage to make your PPM deployment a success. So with that, we'll go ahead and get into the details. There are many factors to consider when assessing your PPM needs, across the organization. Occurs more often than not. We see it very often that, maybe financial constraints or time to market requirements outweigh the critical need to understand and evaluate, why the change is taking place, why the need for PPM came across in the first place. Once a system is approved, we don't want to get bogged down with the we need it now mentality and rush the process. Essentially not losing sight of the reason why it was originally needed in the first place. Speaking of objectives of a PPM tool, whose objectives are they? How can you meet those objectives by enforcing a tool, for example, or a discipline even, that only benefits those at the top? And the answer is you really can't. The most common mistake made in PPM deployments is the inability to define all stakeholders, their challenges, their tools and processes, and even, very importantly, their organizational project management maturity. An effective strategy for PPM implementation addresses all of these various areas. Knowing and understanding your target audience will undoubtedly result in a higher user adoption, which is critical for PPM. And then, of course, leading to overall acceptance and maximized ROI for the original initiative. Before we get to the various areas where maturity can be measured, let's take a quick look at the 3 common challenges that can potentially cause a negative impact in PPM deployments. And again, these are 3 that are common that we see across many of the deployments that we work on a daily basis. So, challenge number 1 solution rarely fits the needs of all users. So an enterprise system typically isn't tailored to meet all users' needs. Yet, of course, it's called an enterprise system, so what does that mean? It means it's a tool to be shared and used by the entire organization. The problem is that most teams in an organization work differently. They have different processes, they follow different leaders, and they have different areas of focus, which results in different work. A system must allow you to define your enterprise needs and then customize the tool to meet the needs of individual teams or departments. we've seen this evolve greatly in project management. It used to be that the executives would define, here's what I need out of the tool. The tool would be built, and then the users weren't accommodated, and that's a critical point of failure. If each user understands that the tool will meet their needs and resolve any of the pain points they might have, then everyone will win. The executives will get to see what they need across the enterprise, and the individual teams can work the way that they're used to working to make the tool effective for them, to make them more productive. Usability equals success in any enterprise system, and then of course the data outputs are only as good as the information going into the tool. Which leads us to deployment challenge number 2. A system rarely accommodates all other work that affects your project resources. For example, where can you go in your PPM system to find a service request ticket that's affecting your ability to complete your project tasks on time? There are several components of PPM that are essential, and the most important one is resource management. If you can't effectively manage your resources, how will you end up with a quality product within budget and, of course, delivered on time? Once again, the answer is you probably can't. In order to perform the resource management functions needed to obtain project success, you must capture all work, not just project tasks. And again, this is another big piece of evolution that has come across the years. It used to be a PPM system just contained project work. And now, the understanding is you can't have a PPM system without considering all other work. So, for example, let's say that Jim and Bill are working on one of your projects and you can't figure out why they're so behind on their task. You go into your PPM system, you see that they're only 50% allocated to 3 projects combined. And of course, for your information, that doesn't give you the insight needed to effectively manage your resources. It also doesn't help Jim and Bill with productivity, because most likely they're going into various systems to manage the various types of work that they're managing. So what's the solution in this case? Your system must have the ability to manage all work associated with all resources so that you can properly manage your organization's assets, right, your resources. This is just an example of various systems you might have in your organization. If you can remove the silos of information spread across your organization and accommodate all work in one solution, not only will you increase productivity, but you could potentially reduce other costs, such as eliminating unnecessary infrastructure, reducing the need for dedicated system expertise, and then even removing the ongoing expense of maintaining redundant systems. Combining everything that we talked about thus far, you must accommodate all users, all work, and all processes for a complete portfolio. PPM systems seldom represent a complete picture, making visibility into all investments almost impossible. Have you ever looked at your project portfolio in your system and wondered why you're only seeing $265,000 worth of projects when you have allocated 3 times that amount for execution? Projects nowadays are everywhere. They're not just in your PMO or within your IT department. You buy into project management because it proves to be valuable. It's definitely worth investing dollars to hire project managers to manage the large projects. It's really almost like buying insurance, right? You need to protect your original investment of saying, yes, let's execute on these projects. But an organization's portfolio will never be complete without including all the small day-to-day projects that keep the business running. Those might not be executed by seasoned project managers, but they must be accommodated in the tool. One of the things that we see commonly is that, maybe an organization will say, only projects that have over a $500,000 investment should be included in the tool. And again, that can be a point of failure because you won't be able to see the overall picture of your full portfolio. So again, projects are everywhere. So are the resources running those initiatives. Visibility into all your investments is critical in understanding the true health of your portfolio. You must be able to accommodate all projects, large, small, which means that the project management maturity will vary across users. and project managers and those, taking charge of those initiatives. In order to accomplish, the complete portfolio, you must provide tools for both complex schedule management as well as lightweight schedule management. It's not realistic to believe that every project in your organization will be run by a seasoned and experienced project manager. Summing it up, it's essential to consider all aspects of your work portfolio, accommodate all the projects, and then, again, offering tools for every user at the varying levels of maturity. In order to make a deployment successful, you must know and understand your audience. So who will be using the tool, what challenges do they face, what benefits are expected out of the tool for every user, what capabilities are needed to meet the user's needs, and then where does everybody fall with maturity. Introducing a new system that is designed to take an organization from level 1 maturity to level 5 maturity in the first phase, for example, is destined to fail and will only introduce risk. Organizational readiness is a critical factor in implementing PPM. It could essentially make or break your deployment success. For this kind of leads to the next topic. Let's take a look at the different areas where maturity can be measured. There's more to the system design than just defining the various roles in the organization. You have to understand the function that each role plays in the business, as well as what tools and processes are being leveraged to execute them. There are many maturity models, available and out on the market today. I tend to refer to the Gartner PPM maturity model, and we're going to look at that here in just a minute. Maturity can be measured by the tools and processes currently in place, as well as the disciplines supported by them. Again, the faster you move up in maturity, the more risk you could potentially introduce. When implementing a new system, it's always a good idea to start with the current processes currently in place and then transfer that to the new tool set. For example, if a user manages their resources through a list of projects found in an Excel worksheet, which again is very common, transfer that same process into the new tool set. If the user expresses that maybe that process that they're using today is also one of their core challenges, make adjustments to that process where needed, but start at the same level of maturity within the PPM application. As users become familiar with the tool set, it will be appropriate to mature their processes as well as adopt new functionality as they move forward. User readiness is crucial. And then, forcing your users to utilize a tool that leverages unfamiliar disciplines and processes, will definitely frustrate the users and, result in low user adoption and possibly overall rejection of a critical investment. So keep that in mind. Don't expect to implement a PPM system that will leverage the same functionality for every user. Instead, implement a flexible and scalable system that will accommodate all your users and allow them to, improve their productivity through gradual maturity progression at their own pace. Similar to users, there's multiple levels of maturity found in system capabilities as well. As you define the processes that are currently in place for all users, the capability maturity will also be revealed and will vary across users. Let's take a look at some of the PPM capabilities that will be found in the system. This is a quick glance at the Gartner maturity model. Projects and works will be the core of your system, right? So the maturity is a critical factor in determining what tools should be implemented and to what level of functionality. Don't be surprised if you end up spending the bulk of your, PPM design session answering, questions like, how do we define a project? That's going to be very important. So most organizations function at a very low maturity level. You can see the percentages up on the screen. Maturity can be measured by the processes already in place within your PMO or across your projects. And some organizations may not have a PMO as well. Are processes clearly defined, or are they ad hoc, for example? Do users use the same tool consistently, or is everyone on their own tool that works best for them? It's important here to understand what types of projects and work will be handled in the system and how that work will be defined. Will you manage that work at the task level, maybe a milestone level, or will projects be entered and tracked at the project level? In fact, you can imagine, you can just imagine filling out a document or a project charter regarding your upcoming work, right? What questions need to be answered and what data needs to be defined. Once you've clearly identified the information that must be captured for all the projects in the system, then define what processes will take place to execute on them. How will you manage changes, issues, risk. The level of project detail and the depth of your processes will help determine maturity and then in return corresponding functionality that should be introduced to the business within the actual platform. Portfolio management includes both the discipline of identifying and selecting the right projects as well as the ability to effectively manage your portfolio once they've been entered into the execution phase, for example, overall portfolio visibility. Although portfolio selection is critical, many organizations begin with project execution or the actual managing of project schedules long before they consider the benefits of portfolio selection. And we're seeing this evolve throughout the years as well. More organizations are coming in from the top-down level than the original bottoms-up level. Identifying the right projects for your business may include processes such as, determining objective alignment, identifying risk probability, resource and cost planning, even project portfolio scenario modeling. For the execution level user, right, this is the bottoms-up, portfolio management may simply be portfolio visibility across all projects and work. Visibility into project status, resources, and cost generates awareness and will then help prevent unforeseen risk to maintain, of course, a healthy portfolio. Questions that will help determine portfolio management maturity may be questions like, will this tool be helped to manage potential projects? What kind of information is required to accept or approve a project? What is the process for moving projects from proposal to execution? And what project and work data must be seen across your portfolio to ensure overall health? In the last discipline area of project management, we determine whether or not your projects will be detailed to the task level or will be managed at the project level. If you determine that they'll be managed at the task level, schedule management is the next necessary topic for design. This area is critical because we all work differently, right? Many PPM tools give you one scheduling option. This could definitely be a point of failure for many organizations. Which user maturity level will the scheduling tool accommodate if you only have one tool? And then for those that fall above or below that particular maturity level, what tool will they use? So user adoption is the only answer for a successful PPM system. Every user must have the tools necessary to manage their work at their own level of comfort. If a marketing director, for example, who needs to maintain a simple list of campaigns, there's no question that they will need a different tool, a scheduling tool, than a construction manager, for example, who needs to manage the build of a new hospital to code. So very different uses there and very different maturities. Resource management can mean many things. Let's take a look at the various ways resource management can be applied to your PPM tool. There's much more to this discipline than simply assigning work to a resource, right? Let's look at it from the bottom up. A task or work is put into the system and a resource is assigned. The resource goes into the system, views his or her work, executes on the work, and then marks their status, right? 50 to 100% complete, whatever it is. Some organizations stop here in the practice of resource management, but there are many other levels to reveal. And again, we've seen this evolve. Many more organizations are taking a top-down approach. How do you know which resource is available to work on what task? How do you know if they have the right skill set? Let's look at the top-down approach. So a project's been defined and you need to build a resource plan against it. You don't know who's available or who has the proper expertise, but you do know what role you need. You schedule 5 developers, maybe over the next 3 months, to work on this project. Now you want to see which developers meet the requirements of your project. The PPM tool must be able to accommodate your method of resource management, whether it's bottom-up or top-down, or maybe even a combination of both. Let's move on to cost management. The following questions could be considered when determining cost management needs for your organization. For example, at what level do you plan your project budget? Do you plan it at the project or the task level? This, again, will help you determine where the budget data will be entered into the tool. And then what types of costs must be tracked? For example, do you only want to track costs associated with resources, or also other project costs that might include purchases, expenses, materials, subcontractors, overhead, etc.? If the answer to the question is expenses, for example, you might want to design an expense form used to track expenses and apply against your project's financials. If your organization isn't prepared to exercise cost management at the task or work level, don't. Start where you are now and then mature the processes as you adopt to the tool. A system that houses partial data can lead to poor decision making. So how will you know what decisions are necessary, when you don't have the visibility to see where you currently are with your costs? So this one's critical. If you're not doing costs today, again, transfer the processes that are being used, and then, gradually mature so that you're able to see the overall cost across your portfolio. Tracking and controlling is important because it not only defines the data to be tracked, but the process for how it will be tracked within your tool set. For example, do you want team members to supply detailed progress information about their assignments? And if you do, you may want to allow them the ability to go into their task and enter their % complete or their remaining work numbers. The updates can automate back into your schedule, and of course this can save time and improve efficiency, but again, this is a very detailed level of tracking. Are you looking to include timesheets in your system? Are you looking to integrate with your current timesheet system even? If you do want to include timesheets in the system, you'll want to make sure that it's been configured to include the proper categories needed to reflect your business needs. If you're reporting actual hours worked on a weekly basis against projects, do you want them to complete their time daily, at the end of the week? All of these questions will help define your timesheet configuration. And then, of course, what work do you want to track? Is there a requirement to identify and track changes in scope or other issues when project status changes? If the answer is yes, you may want to define attributes needed for a change request so project owners can easily adapt to those changes, and then, of course, adjust their costs, schedules, and resources accordingly. Do you have a requirement to track project issues, risk? Is there a requirement to track other work items that need to be considered that maybe affect your resources, such as service requests, action items, etc.? Again, data capture must take place for all work. You've heard me say that throughout the presentation today. It's very important. Any and all work that affects your costs, your resources, and your schedule. Now that we addressed the main content needed for project and work definition and management, let's take a look at some of the outputs that might be considered in your system design. Some questions here to consider might be, do you have reports that you use today that are used for analysis or decision making? Do you currently have a requirement to generate a weekly or monthly status report? Do you have standard reports required for your projects? What are those reports? What type of information would be useful when viewing project status? The answers to these questions will help you determine what reports and dashboards are necessary to ensure you're getting the outputs required to maximize ROI and then optimize value of your PPM system across the board. As you can imagine, there are many more questions that can be asked to help you define a detailed business-specific design that is right for your organization. Other areas that must be considered in design include integration, demand management, workflow and governance, and even general collaboration needs. As questions are answered and more questions are generated, make sure you're considering every user at every level of maturity. The level in which you capture data can vary, but ensuring that the system is built to make it easy to capture the data and, most importantly, completely across all work is a critical component for visibility and accuracy. There are a few steps you need to take to make your PPM deployment successful long before you start asking the questions necessary for requirements building. As a longtime employee of EPM Live who specializes in end-to-end PPM deployments, I've learned to follow a few simple steps prior to the requirements gathering that will help ensure successful PPM delivery. On this slide, I'm going to refer to your requirements gathering meetings as a workshop. This section is specifically meant for those who are leading the PPM implementation effort and those who will be involved in the PPM requirements plan. Before you begin working with your stakeholders on defining your maturity and your requirements, ensure that they understand the next steps as well as the right audience needed to avoid future holes. Don't take for granted that your audience understands the full extent of what will be discussed in the workshop. Without a high-level overview of the questions that will be asked, they won't be able to appropriately define the right attendees to result in requirements that will meet the needs of every user. Always send the question overview topics first. Those who are needed to answer the questions are required in the session for a successful plan delivery. It's also critical to know the experience level of each individual in the room in regards to the workshop topic, and of course in this case it's going to be PPM. This will help you gauge the depth of questioning you need to accomplish to ensure you're getting all information needed to define a system that will meet every user's needs. If you don't define the vision, you're assuming that everyone fully understands the discipline that you are looking to achieve. For example, in a PPM system, you'll need to cover financial management. To do so, you may need to involve the CFO. The CFO understands finances, no doubt, but how do you know if he or she understands what PPM is all about? Everyone must be working towards the same goal, so you need to make sure that you define what that goal is. When you get into a room with various functional resources, it's not uncommon for them to go back and forth on how the business is run, right? They're different, they represent different roles. Make sure that everyone agrees on current processes that are being used in every area. You can't, build a good strategy or vision around unknowns. This, if that's the case, it could potentially lead to rework in the future. So, make sure everyone agrees on what's being done now and ensure that everyone is thinking in the same direction. If any assumptions are being made in the session, challenge them. Look for words such as I think or it's possible. If there are parts of the business that are unknown, someone must be missing, from your session. Make sure you lead with a complete understanding of the business. Challenging your team on the thought process will only lead to good things, innovation, new insights, and, potentially new value. If you don't focus on the pain points and challenges your teams are having today, you can't guarantee a system that won't just recreate the same frustrations tomorrow. At the end of the day, if you can ensure that all pain points have been addressed in the end solution, you're halfway there. It's important that your team understand what works today and how they can leverage their strengths to minimize their weaknesses moving forward. I know you've heard this many, many times, but again, don't fix what isn't broken. This one is absolutely critical. Prep the workshop attendees to not only consider their areas and their pain points, but the rest of the users as well. A tool cannot be successful without usability, and if you can't explain to each individual user that you'll put on the tool what the benefit is to them for using the tool, you won't be able to accomplish adoption across the board. When discussing next steps, it's also important to set expectations. There's always risk involved when defining strategy and tool sets. Taking on too much functionality at once will, in return, introduce more risk. Properly analyze your current maturity level on the given topic. Take baby steps. allow for stabilization between phases to ensure adoption is successful. Enforce a training and support plan, and make sure you know how to communicate the plan to others. Users will always push back on the unfamiliar, so involve key opinion leaders to help sell the problem along with the solution. We'll touch on this a little bit in the branding section. Eliminate adoption barriers by knowing everyone's pain points and ensuring the tool will benefit all. And the last one here really isn't a tip, but a statement. It's your responsibility to get the detail that you need to make informed decisions on behalf of your business. The business doesn't know what they don't know, right? You have to ask for it. So in these sessions, you're the expert, so keep that in mind. All right, let's touch on branding a little bit. Why is branding PPM so important? Well, branding doesn't only apply to products. It applies to anything that must be sold. For example, are you a consultant looking for your next engagement? In my case, a marketing director trying to increase awareness, across the industry. Or in regards to PPM, a PMO director attempting to sell executives on why project management is critical for your organization. If you think about it, how will you sell PPM to your organization, and what's your PPM brand strategy? In today's economy, PPM is obviously a brand that we must sell. We're all tightening budgets, reducing overhead in some cases. PPM is needed now more than ever. I'm going to try to help you sell project management, the actual project management brand, to your organization and your teams. So let's start by answering one question. What do I want people to say about my brand? Let's look at the definition of PPM through Wikipedia. PPM is a term used by project managers and project management organizations, or PMOs, to describe methods for analyzing and collecting, managing a group of current or proposed projects based on numerous key characteristics. The fundamental objective of PPM is to determine the optimal mix and sequencing of proposed projects to best achieve the organization's overall goals. Typically expressed in terms of hard economic measures, business strategy goals, or technical strategy goals, while honoring constraints imposed by management or external real-world factors. So it's a mouthful. That's the Wikipedia definition. The PPM discipline in general will ensure that this cost-efficient method is both intentional and consistent as you continue to enforce PPM throughout your organization. If you could guarantee that all projects and work are completed utilizing the least amount of dollars, times, and resources, and then in return resulting in the highest quality, wouldn't you sign up for that promise? I mean, that's a brand promise that you can trust, right? So the bad economy is no reason to reduce PPM in your organization. In fact, it's just the opposite. It's time to capitalize on PPM. You'll save money, protect the investments by utilizing this particular discipline. It's absolutely critical that we sell the PPM brand to our organizations, to our executives before we begin implementation. We all must brand ourselves, our skills, our business. A brand must be consistent and continuous value to its audience. It's essential, PPM is an essential brand for organizations to enforce that we will ensure the right projects are being completed at the right time, and of course within the given budget. So let's not forget the critical output of any project, which has to be increased value. Before we start talking about PPM tools, let's do a quick recap of the common PPM deployment challenges that many businesses face that we've already discussed today. One solution rarely fits the needs of all users. A PPM system rarely accommodates all work that affects your project's resources. And PPM systems seldom represent a complete portfolio, making visibility into all investments impossible. Matt, I'm going to hand it over to you so you can demonstrate a few tools that will help our audience with these common challenges.
Sounds good. go ahead and switch this over here. Show my screen. So basically, I'm going to go through some tools and features within EPM Live, as Heather mentioned, about how to really execute those concepts that Heather just went through with you. So we've tried to build our tool in a way to help support all of those different processes and make this easier to deploy and be more successful within your organization. So one of your very first questions is top-down or bottom-up, or a little bit of both. What you're looking to do, and there's some key pros and cons of each. But what we've done is we've made, I just went to our app store here. When you very first start off with EPM Live, you make that choice. And based on that choice, there's two different templates, two different packages of our solution that you can choose from. If you start with Work Engine, I'm going to go ahead and click Learn More here. Work Engine is more of a bottom-down system. So we're building our project schedule, we're assigning it to people, all the team members are involved. It's coming from the bottom, and it's working its way up. So the features within Work Engine are things like projects and reporting and tasks and issues and changes and all the different work types that you may want to do within a PPM tool. If you decide that you want to go top-down, we have a tool called Portfolio Engine. Go ahead and click on Learn More here. So Portfolio Engine has some different features in it, things like project cost planning, project resource planning, project prioritization. So what that allows you to do is really from the top down say, here's our budget, here's the amount of resources that we're giving you, kind of make it work. And then from there you can actually do a combination approach. You can also do bottoms up as well as top down, so that you start with the top down, you say here's what you have, and then you do the bottoms up and say, well, okay, this is what I can do with that, and then you can actually compare the two to each other within the system. So those are kind of your major first choice of which methodology are you going to use, or a little bit of both. And so we have tools to support that. The next thing is you don't have to do everything all at once. You can add things in phases, so it's not just, it's more of a crawl, walk, run situation instead of, we used to just do this and now we're going to do all of this. You don't have to do that. So also with the App Store is the ability to do that. So we can say, well, we want to do cost planning now, but we don't want to do resource planning yet. So what you can do is those apps are all pre-installed into these different site templates. And if you don't want to do cost planning yet, you just uninstall that app. And when you're ready to do it in the future, if you are, then you can install that app, and it takes about 30 seconds or so. So you can actually move into those different features. It is possible to start with Work Engine and move into Portfolio Engine, as well as you could start with Portfolio Engine, take some of the features away via uninstalling apps, and start with a light version of Portfolio Engine and kind of work your way into the full version. So another concept that's demonstrated with the App Store here is the concept of adding functionality little by little, doing it more in phases. So maybe right now we're going to start with just our IT projects, and then in the future we want to add in our new product development projects, and then we want to start doing some IT service management within the system. So you can kind of bring in other groups of people one by one and start to work it up and build it up, instead of jumping in and say right away we're going to do application portfolio management and IT service management and new product development and all these different things. That can be hard to get up and running all at once, and it's a lot of change in an organization. So to kind of work into it, the App Store can support that by you can start out with the base, and then you can start to install these apps as you go and really plan those implementations and do them step by step. Another concept that can help with this is the concept of communities. So I'm going to switch here to our demo site. So communities really allow you to target the system, target pieces of the system towards certain groups of people. So maybe when you very first start out, you just have a projects community and a My Workplace community. The projects community has things in it like projects, portfolios, tasks, issues, documents. It's meant for project manager or portfolio manager types of people, people of those roles within your organization. And they come in and they see that information and they have their own homepage here, and that makes sense to them. And you might also bring some team members into the system, and there's a community here out of the box called My Workplace. Go ahead and switch to that community. And basically what happens is your links updates and your homepage updates. So instead of seeing things like projects, issues, and tasks, I see things like my work, my timesheets, my time off to do things that are more relevant to me, as well as the home page focuses on my work, my comment stream, my reminders, things that make sense for me as a user. And you can use this communities concept because these communities are configurable and you can add as many as you want. As you work into those other phases, you can add a community to support that. So for instance, I'm going to switch sites here. In this particular site, we don't just have projects in my work. We've added in a community for IT executives so that they can come in and have their own place. There's a community for application portfolio management. So, when we're ready to start bringing in IT executives and we're ready to start bringing in the application portfolio managers and things like that, we can add this community, we can install that app, and we can phase it in without messing with what we already had, for instance, the projects community and the My Workplace community. So those people are still stable and they don't feel like things are changing too much. We're just bringing more functionality in, and all of that data behind it can all tie together because it's all stored in the same place. So your reporting will now start showing, instead of just projects, tasks, and issues, it's going to start showing things like service requests that are going to show up from your service management community, and it'll all tie together into the existing tools that you already have, like My Work and things like that. And we'll talk a little bit more about My Work and some of those in a second as well. But basically, it's a great way to break the system up into more manageable pieces and phase into it. The tool also supports trying to get people involved. One of the hardest parts of deploying these tools is it's change for people. It's something different that they have to do. So the best way to do that is to get people involved is to help make it easy and make it valuable for them, right? How are we providing value to them so that they'll put the information in the system so that the executives can see correct reporting and have visibility into what's going on? It's a whole process back and forth. If someone's not involved in the process doesn't work. So we've tried to make lots of different tools within the system to help all the different groups of people do what they need to do easily, effectively, and bring value to them. One of those tools for especially team members, if you're going especially from a bottom-up approach and you want people statusing their work and keeping on track on top of that and putting all the correct data into the system, we've created a tool called My Work. So I'm going to go ahead and go to My Work here. My Work is really a place where you can come in and you can see all of your work assigned to you in the system, and then you can manage that work yourself, because you might have 50 tasks or 100 tasks or how many ever tasks, and you need to be able to say, well, which ones am I going to work on now? Which ones are most critical, priority, do easily? So this tool really makes it easy for you to manage your work. And while you're managing your work, you don't really realize it, but you're also sending statuses back to your project managers and so on and so forth, and you're updating information in the system, which keeps the reports accurate for management and so on and so forth. So ways that you can do those types of things, for instance, I have lots of tasks assigned to me, and they're not just tasks. I also have problems and service requests and backlog items, right? So all of your different work types can come into here. But I can say, well, I can see that these ones all here are red, so those ones are overdue, so I need to work on those first. I can look at my due date over here, and I can start to say, well, this one was due a long time ago. I should probably be working on that one. So I can come in and I can pick the different items that I'm working on simply by clicking this Working On button here. And then there's a view that I can switch to called Working On It. And now it makes it more easy and manageable, right? I don't have to look at 50 tasks or 100 tasks and try to sort through them all and figure out what I'm doing. I can just look at the ones that I've marked as I'm working on now. So now I can come in and it looks a lot nicer, and I can say, okay, well, I'm going to work on this one right this second. If I have a question, I can comment right from here, and I'll send a message back to whoever created this item, and then you can communicate with them right through the system and see what's going on with this particular task. And then when you're done with it, it's as simple as checking the box here, and it updates all the information for you. It sets it all to complete, sends a notification back to the project manager if it's a task, or depending on the different work types. And that's it. So it makes it really easy for you to work with the data in the system and manage your work, and it's giving you value because it's instead of having to look through all of your emails and look all over the place to try to figure out what you need to do, it's all right here. So it makes you want to use it as well. So it's all part of getting people involved. There's lots of other features in the system like comments and other features that help make it more valuable for you to try to get people involved. But that's definitely one of the big ones, especially for getting team members involved. Another feature within the system that is very helpful with user adoption is leveraging your current tools. Pretty much all of us use Microsoft Office tools currently to manage our work and our projects and our processes and whatever it may be. You're using tools like Excel, you're using tools, you might be using Microsoft Project, Microsoft Word, whatever it may be. There's lots of different tools that you're already using. So what EPM Live allows you to do is leverage that and really just bring it all together into a central location so that you have more visibility, and we'll be talking about visibility in a second. But there's lots of different things in the system that allow you to leverage those current tools as well as the current skills that people already have. If you're familiar with Excel already and that's what you do, great. You can go to the document library and you can upload your Excel spreadsheet, as well as you can do Excel views right from within of EPM Live. So for instance, if I go to my issues list here, there's a way you can switch to more of an Excel type view. It's called a data sheet view. So I can hit the actions button. I can switch to my edit mode, which will be my data sheet type of view. And then it's more like Excel. Instead of working with it in a different format and process, if I want to come in and update the priority of this to high, I go ahead and do that. Similarly to I would in Excel, it's more of an editable grid here. When I'm ready, I hit save, and that's it. I'm done. You can also export this data out to Excel. I'm not going to do that right now, but if you did, it would open it up in Excel and you could type it in that way. We even have a tool called the Excel Sync that allows you to then sync data back and forth between your Excel spreadsheet and an EPM Live app or list here. So there's lots of different ways to do that. If you're already working with documents like Word documents and things of that nature and PowerPoint presentations, you can upload those all into here. And it just makes the data accessible to other people. If you're doing a PowerPoint presentation and you just have it on your local computer, maybe someone else is doing a similar presentation, but they have no way to leverage that because it's not in a, they don't even know, right? They don't know what they don't know. So if you upload it into a place, then people can search that data and they can say, oh, there's already a presentation similar to what I'm doing. I just need to make some updates and we can leverage existing work, right? So there's definitely things that you can use, as well as Microsoft Project. So if you're already using Microsoft Project to manage your schedules, that's definitely a good start. The problem with that is you have a resource pool in your Microsoft Project schedule, and you have no visibility into everybody else's Microsoft Project schedules. So you don't know if these people are actually available or not, and then you have to go try to talk to them and track them down and talk to the other project managers and try to bring all this information together, and that can be very hard to do. With EPM Live, you'll create your project, you'll edit your plan, you'll be using the resource pool within EPM Live, and all of that information is all stored in the same place. So it allows you to say, hey, this resource isn't available. I can't use them for my particular project. I need to figure something else out without going and having to try to track down that information. As well as during the actual execution of the project, you don't have to try to bring, for instance, if you are more of a manager level, and you want to see all of the different costs from all of your projects, trying to bring that all together can be very hard. If it's all stored within the same system already, it's very easy. And that brings me to my next section here, which is visibility. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back to this site. And wrong one, this one. And I'm going to switch back to my projects community. And I just want to show a few of the dashboard and reporting capabilities within the system that allows for that easy visibility, right? We have all of this data, and if it's all aggregated and it's all over the place in people's Excel spreadsheets and project schedules and wherever it lives, it makes it really hard to pull that data together and get a picture of what's going on. With this, all the information's in the same system, and if I want to see something, I just go to the Reports tab, and from there I can see anything that I want to see. So for instance, if I wanted to see a quick dashboard of my projects, just some quick dashboard stats and things on my projects, I can expand the project section here. I can go ahead and go to the project dashboard. I'll launch that. And it's going to load a dashboard, and I can just get some quick data about my projects and see what's going on, see if there's any problems. If there are, then I can drill in and see what the root cause and details of these particular problems are. But it's going to show me things like number of projects by state, projects by type, number of projects by project manager. I can see potential issues like, why does this project manager have 20 projects and this one only has 3? And I've heard that guy's having some problems because he just has too much work, and so his projects are suffering because of it, right? So some quick dashboards here, you can see things like number of issues by status about your projects, As well as if you're looking for specific data about specific projects, there's a filter web part here. So you can say, I just want to see active projects. And it'll refresh here, and it's just going to show me all the active projects. And really, I just care about these 3 right now. Those are what I'm interested in. And then I can filter, and it'll update all of this information on this page to reflect that. So there's these dashboards built in throughout the system, not only for projects, but for issues, for tasks, for portfolios, so on and so forth. So definitely the dashboarding feature is a great feature to take advantage of when you just want to come into the system and get some quick statuses. You know, I just want to quickly see what's project budget versus actual cost for my different types of projects. So that's definitely something that you can take advantage of. Oops, I accidentally clicked that there. I don't want to click that. Another type of reports in the system which also allow for greater visibility, and really the key of these reports is to be able to easily print and export these and say you want to put them in a PowerPoint presentation or email them off to someone or take one to a meeting and print it out, whatever it may be. We have reports here called reporting services reports. So these are all built, if you're familiar with Microsoft SQL reporting services, these reports are all built using that. And there's lots of these pre-built reports out of the box that you can take advantage of, as well as it's very easy to update these reports or create your own as well. But basically, through these reports, you can see pretty much anything you want to see. You know, there's a very large set of reports here out of the box, so you can see you have lots of options as far as how you want to look at the data and get that visibility that would otherwise take you, possibly days or weeks to compile all of that data together and see it all within one place. For instance, if I'm interested in resource work versus capacity, so I want to see how allocated my resources are. There's a report here for that. It's under the resource section. I can click on resource work versus capacity, and I can easily say, okay, what resources do I want to see this report for? So I'll go ahead and select a few here. What scope do I want to see? So which types of work? And it'll automatically, as you install different apps, it will bring in those work lists in here for you. So it's a dynamic report. So for instance, when you install our Agile app, the backlog list will show up here as an option. So maybe I'm interested in issues, risks, and tasks. So I'll go ahead and choose those types of work. Then you can pick a from and a to period. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to say I want to see from the last few months here what's been going on up until January. And then under units, I can pick how I want to see this data. Do I want to see the data by days, by weeks, by months, by years? Since I picked kind of a large period of time, I'm going to go ahead and choose months. I'm going to hit apply. And as simple as that, within 10 seconds here of filling out a little bit of information about what data I want to see, it goes out into the system. It finds all that data that people have been putting in while they were using their My Work and while they were using all these other tools. It grabs all that data, it aggregates it for me, and now I can quickly just export this out and take it to management or whatever it may be. So it is finding lots of data here, so it takes a little bit to get it together, but once it is, it's all nicely workable, and I can see things in here like, well, look, Adam Barr is over allocated in the month of December, and I can drill in right here within the report, and I can see why that is. So I can say, okay, what's Adam Barr working on? Well, it looks like he's working on the Xbox DVD project. I can expand into that, and I can see what specific task he's working on that's making him over-allocated. It looks like he's spending 102 hours developing user manuals, and that's mostly the reason why he's over-allocated in the month of December. So then I can take this, once I've got it the way I want it, I can hit Actions, and then I can export this to a PDF or an Excel file or a Word document or whatever I'd like, or print it out, and I can send this to whoever may need it or bring it up in a meeting or whatever it may be and show, look, he's over-allocated here or planned to be over-allocated here if we were looking into the future. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to solve this issue? So lots of different reports in the system to give you that visibility, and without everyone adopting the system and working with the system, those reports can become less and less valuable. You need everyone to be participating in order to make sure that that data is accurate and correct. And to help people also ensure that they're using the system so that we can get that visibility and to make this deployment successful, we also have support and training tools. So I just wanted to show really quickly our what we call the EPM Live University. I've already logged into the university, and if you are a customer and you purchase our training and support package, then you can use the EPM Live University. So it's definitely a useful tool that you would want to take advantage of. And basically, it allows people to get, to take classes, whether it's a refresher class or for the first time trying to learn how to do something. It allows you to take these courses self-paced on your own. You don't have to, wait for a class to happen, and if it's at the wrong time of day that doesn't work for you, that's not good. So what you can do is you can come in here and you can go into learning paths. Oh, I need to log in again. I can go into the learning paths here, and I can see that there's a learning path for executives, for project managers, resource managers, site collection administrators, team members. So really all of the different roles that you might have within the system. So I'm a project manager. I can go ahead and click on that, and it's going to give me a brief description of all the courses I can take, and I can take these on demand as I'm ready for them. It's going to be through a combination of videos, and there's tests that you take at the end, and there's a syllabus for the course that you can walk through, and some different materials. So it's a really great way to get the information as you need it and as you want it, and be able to refresh that information as well. So it makes people, helps them to buy into the system better by giving them the tools to do that. So what you do is you just come in, you register for a particular course. For instance, I'm going to use Microsoft Project to manage my projects, and I want to see how to do that in EPM Live. All I have to do is hit register. I'm now registered. I can proceed to my courses, and now it shows up here. When I'm ready to take it, I can just go ahead and take it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that course there, and it's going to load up the course for me. So there, you can see within this course, there's a PowerPoint presentation that I can walk through, as well as there's some videos here, so I can watch different videos on how to do this as I'm going through it. There's a syllabus, and then a practice lab, and then at the very end there's also an exam that I can take. And once I take the exam, if I pass, it'll actually give me a certificate, and you can earn PDUs as well through taking these different tests. So it encourages people to get involved, to learn about the system, to give them the tools they need so that they don't get frustrated and not use it, because you want this to be successful. So it's definitely a great way to do that. So then, once I've taken it, I get my certificate here. Can download my certificate, and they get a really nice certificate that makes them feel like they did something, as well as they can get PDUs for it as well. So it's a really great system and a really great tool to get people interacting and into EPM Live and using the tool so that we can get the most value out of it. Another a service that we have is support.epmlive.com. I'm going to go ahead and go to our support site. So our support site, the goal of it is to make it really easy, and answers to questions. And if we don't have an answer to the question right from here, it'll create a ticket, and then our support people will get back to you. So you can say, how do I create a project schedule? And what it starts doing is it starts searching all of our knowledge base articles and our user guide, and all the different places where you can get information from. And here's how to create a new project, here's how to save a project planner template. It starts giving me all the information I need. If it's not there, then it'll actually create a ticket in our system, and then someone will get back to you and contact you and figure out what's going on, and then we'll try to add that into our system so the next person that goes and does it will have that information readily available. So it's a really easy, quick way to get the information you need if you're having an issue and you need some support, or if you just don't know how to do something. So all great tools. So, the goal of all of this is to make it so that the system can support all users, all work, and all processes, right? We want to be able to take care of everything from service management to issues to changes, but it doesn't have to be all at once. You can phase into it using the modularized app store approach in communities and such. So with that, I think that's the end of my section here. I hope that you can see how all these different tools can help you have a successful deployment, and be thinking about that when you go to deploy EPM Live, if you do choose that. Cool. I think we're going to go ahead and switch back to Heather here and just do some closing statements.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt. Thanks again to everyone for joining us for today's presentation. If you are interested in learning more about EPM Live, we welcome you to visit our website at epmlive.com. From there, you can access trials, webinars. We've got some free white papers you can download on best practices of disciplines, and then we've got some how-to videos there as well. If you have questions regarding today's webinar, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. My contact information is on the screen. And then for those of you who need your PDU information, the number is listed on the bottom of the screen as well. So with that, we will say goodbye and we look forward to next time. Have a great day.